Hello everybody, welcome to our lesson on analyzing and graphing plot. I will do my best to speak as slowly as possible so that you can follow more easily, but if you find that you're a little lost or you missed something that I said, please feel free to pause this video or to rewind if necessary. Also, please make sure that you make notes on the sheet that you were given during class. This is how I will check your homework. If you watch this video and you make no notes, I will not be able to give you credit for doing the homework, so please make sure you do that. I want to give you credit. Okay, so first we need a definition of plot. The fancy, kind of very academic definition is the plot is the unified structure of events in literary work, also a movie or other story. In other words, the plot is the series of events in a story. That's a little bit more simple. It's the order of events in a story. The plot is driven by the conflict. Conflict gives the plot direction and energy, and the reader's interest is held by the suspense of wondering what will happen next in the series of events. If you've ever read a book or watched a movie and lost interest in it or didn't believe it or didn't like it, probably because you did not believe the conflict. You were not interested in it, and so you didn't care to know what was going to happen next. You need a strong conflict to have an interesting plot. Now, there are 5 major stages of plot development, and they're going to be listed on the following slide. First, you have exposition. This is basically the introduction to the story. You have the inciting incident, you have the rising action here, the climax, and then you have the resolution. And within the resolution, you have the falling action. So the 5 major stages are exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, and resolution. Within the resolution, again, is the falling action. So we'll do a little bit of a description of them. Here are the stages. Exposition. This is a stage of a literary work in which necessary background knowledge is given about the characters or setting. So, the reason it's flat is because there's no tension, there's no excitement, there's no suspense, you're just getting the background information. You don't want this, if you're a writer, you don't want this section to be too long, people get bored, you need to keep moving with the story eventually, but for now, you just get the background information. So this is a point where I'd like you to pause the video, go to your note sheet, and in your own words, write a definition for exposition. Okay. The next stage of plot development is the inciting incident. That's an event in literary work that sparks the conflict of the story and begins the tension of the story. It starts the conflict, which is why when you look on the graph, you get your information and then a problem is presented to you. Somebody wants something, but they can't have it, and so they take action. And that's the next stage, also the rising action. But this, the inciting incident, is where conflict begins in the story. So please pause the video, please return to your homework sheet, and just put down in your own words, what is the inciting incident of the plot? Okay. The next stage of the story is the rising action. That's the stage of a literary work in which the conflict further develops and the tension of the work increases. So, when you're reading a book or watching a movie, you have the exposition, you have the conflict begin, and then the character takes a series of actions and things happen. And that's where, if the conflict is good and interesting, your tension increases. That's why you have this uphill. I'll often compare this to a roller coaster ride. If you get on a roller coaster, when you get on board and then you come to the point where the hill starts and you go up that first incline. And if you've been on a roller coaster, it's very exciting. The taller the roller coaster, the more exciting it gets. In a story, the more events happen, the more the conflict is developed, the more exciting the movie gets. So this is like waiting for the roller coaster to start. You go up the hill, up the hill, up the hill, until you get to this point. That is the rising action. So please take a moment, pause the video, and on your sheets, put the rising action into your own words. Next, we have the climax. This is the moment of the greatest tension in the story. Sometimes it's called the point of no return, and this is usually where the conflict ends. So, conflict begins, developed, more and more excitement, more tension, that's why the line is uprising. At the top, you have the climax, and this is, of course, at the top, if you've ridden a roller coaster, this is the most exciting part when you have that first fall, right before everything starts. So in the story, this is the most exciting part because this is the final resolution. This is how the conflict of the story will end. There may be more details later, but this is usually the one that has you on the edge of your seat. That is the climax. Oh, please take a moment in your own words on your note sheet. Describe the climax of the story. And finally, we have the resolution. Those are the events that follow the climax and that leads to the final ending. And the falling action is part of this stage. So if we go back, most exciting point, and then you have to kind of end the story. You need to find out what happens, even though you find out what happens between one character and another character, or this character might make a certain decision here, and so that conflict is done. You still want to find out what happens to everybody else, and just generally how the story ends, its conclusion. So this is where ends are tied up, the falling action and the resolution. So please take a moment, make some notes on your homework sheet. We are at the end of the video. Make sure, please, that you do get all the notes you need. Feel free to watch this, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at eferreira@tnexschools.org, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.